Monday to Friday raping, weekend happy families at home. A bad, bad man.
Doing what he done to little kids and doing what he done to my mum, he made me boil inside.
Because I love him so much, I am not going to give up on him.
Hello, please, how can I help you?
A little girl just turned up at our door and she said she's been raped. She's very cold. So, unfortunately.
The rape of a 10-year-old girl in November 2001 was the first in a series of sex attacks that triggered the biggest manhunt since the Yorkshire Ripper. It took hundreds of police officers from 6 forces to catch Antoni Imiela, the M25 rapist.
He picked her up, sort of put his arm round her chest, hand over her mouth like that, so her little feet were off the ground, and he walked her across the car park. I mean, it was dark, but it was really high risk. I mean, people were here at the time picking up their children. And then he took her over here where he stripped her. He tied her trousers round her neck and said if she screamed or shouted, he'd strangle her. There he assaulted her, you know, bad assault, and then he took her down to another location where he again attacked her. He took our young girl to 4 different locations. This was all to do with exerting power, control, domination, fear over that victim, and it was almost to demonstrate that he could do anything he wanted with his child, you know, and that nobody could stop him.
Members of the jury, you will recall he said, "If you scream or cry or anything, I'll break your legs or kill you." She also described being slapped several times across the face when she resisted. As she was moved along that route, she was sexually abused in one place before being moved on to another. At one stage, he remarked to her, "You've done this before, ain't you?" When she said no, he went on, "You're lying to me, you have." Then asked, "Have you ever watched videos of it?"
I got home and the neighbours came around and told me that my daughter had gone missing. They didn't know where my daughter was. They were looking for her. My wife had gone off with a policewoman to try and find her, and at that point a police car turned up outside my house. They just said that she'd been attacked, and my wife phoned me back from the hospital and said that she'd been sexually assaulted and raped, and that they were doing tests. And those 4 hours where I sat waiting at home, waiting for my wife and my daughter to come back, were the longest 4 hours of my life, because I didn't know what sort of state my daughter would be in.
Before leaving her, he asked her if she could count, and when she said yes, he said, "Count up to 500. Now, you will remember she said that she did, but missed out some of the numbers on purpose.
I saw a car pull up and went outside and went and got her out, got my daughter out the back of the car, and I was just cuddling her. And I apologised. I was saying, I'm so sorry. And she turned around and said, "Daddy, it's not your fault. You were at work."
Christine married Antoni Imiela in 1997. She shared a bed with him during the time he was raping women and children.
Come on, Andy.
They'd been married for 5 years when he was arrested in 2002. It was only then she discovered her husband was the M25 rapist.
Come on, then, Rio. Come on, then.
Christine still lives in the home they shared together before he was caught.
Dear Chrissy, this is the hardest letter I have ever had to write and should have been written long before today. The love that we both shared can't always remain the same. What have I to offer you? Hope in the future is all. And no matter what else, it is important now for myself to tell you that I am responsible and guilty. I became a rapist.
Antoni Imiela's family cannot forgive his crimes, and Christine is the only person who visits him in Wakefield Prison.
I still love him, and I know I still love him. The way I feel for him obviously has changed in as much as he's let me down terribly. But I do still love him, and I want to do what I can for him. Not that that's a lot, but just seeing him is enough to keep him going. If I give up on him, I think I'd give up on myself as well. A lot of people say, well, you're still young enough to meet someone else, but I've got absolutely no interest in doing that. I mean, if I haven't got Tony, I don't want anybody. And I can't ever think of any other type of life.
It seems really odd to say that he was the perfect man for my mum. He really did seem like the ideal solution to mum's happiness. I've never seen her like that. She was like a child. Proper, teenage love. It was fantastic.
Tony was my life, and he's still part of it, and I want it to stay like that. And eventually, I hope one day we will be together again. I feel everyone deserves another chance, and I just hope that he's going to be worthy of that. There was a sermon a couple of weeks ago on forgiveness, and our new vicar of the church said, hate the sin and love the sinner, which is very true. I do hate the sin, what he's done. But I hope others will forgive him in time.
In 2004, Imiela was found guilty of a total of 10 counts of rape, kidnap, and indecent assault. He was condemned to 7 life sentences.
We had big cuddles to start with, big cuddles, which we've always said it's our medicine, because big cuddles makes all the pain go away. We kiss during the visit as well and hold hands. We talk and then we have a big cuddle and kisses when I say goodbye.
Imiela has confessed to Christine he's guilty of 1 rape, but claims he's innocent of the others, and accuses the police of falsifying forensic evidence.
I didn't approach the subject about the rapes at all. He knows how I feel. He knows I think he's guilty at least of some of them, and that's enough. And until he tells me and what he did or he didn't do, I really can't ask anymore.
Police investigating the brutal rape of a 10-year-old girl say they are hunting a drunken pervert capable of killing.
They're convinced it was a local man who grabbed the girl outside a youth centre on the Stanhope estate in Ashford.
The one thing I was convinced about was the man had local knowledge. He could have been brought up on the estate and moved off, and it could be he came into the area deliberately knowing that there was a victim that he could find here.
The 10-year-old victim's description of her attacker led detectives to search for a paedophile in his late 20s living in the immediate area. But this did not describe Antoni Imiela. The police were looking for the wrong man.
There's a really interesting conversation between offender and victim where the victim says, I'm only 10, I'm innocent, and the offender says, that's all right, you're in my age range. And that was taken by the investigation as evidence that this man was a paedophile. And I think it was interpreted quite differently by me, because that made me think, well, okay, his age range goes down to 10 and maybe lower, but how far does it go in the other direction? How old could a victim be and still be within his age range? If the investigation had made that assumption that he was a paedophile, then potentially we overlook suspects that are criminal, that are violent, that are sexually aggressive, but do so against adult victims.
The police were looking for a man in the wrong age group, but they did recover vital forensic evidence. Semen found on the 10-year-old victim provided a DNA identity for their suspect.
I was really hopeful that he'd be on the DNA database and that on that Monday we'd identify who he was and would arrest him very early. And it was a huge, huge disappointment, you know, for everybody that he wasn't. So then we embarked on the biggest DNA swabbing the country's ever seen. And that went on for months. And we were starting to question how much longer we could run this inquiry, because we'd swabbed pretty much all of the people that we thought might be suspect in some way, and we had no breakthrough.
All the things the police were doing, they just couldn't get him. And my worst nightmare, but my biggest hope, was for me to be in a shop with my daughter and her to say, "Daddy, that's him." It's a horrible thing when you go out shopping, you're looking, you know, is that him? Is that him? It's unbearable.
By July 2002, police had taken over 2,000 DNA samples from possible suspects. But the investigation was running out of steam, and the rapist was still on the loose.
Our liaison officer came around and sort of saw us and said to us, "Look, we've done everything we can. We've done so many thousand DNA tests and we haven't found him." And they said, "Look, we will get him eventually, but unfortunately at the moment we've got to start scaling down." And just at that moment, he started again.
Sorry, police. There's a lady that's just come up to me and she's in a bit of a state, and she's saying she's been attacked. She's saying she's been raped and attacked.
8 months later, a woman exercising on a common near Red Hill became the rapist's second victim.
This is the scene. She's done a big loop, power walking. She's got a Walkman on, and she comes back along this road and turns in here. And it's just after she gets round the corner that she basically feels the offender run into her back as if he's been hiding in the hedges slightly further back. She's walked past and then he's had to run and catch her up. The first thing she's aware of is an impact to her back, followed very swiftly by the crook of her elbow, grabbing her around the throat really, really tightly. She can barely breathe, and then her immediate reaction is to try and scratch him. And she says, "What do you want?" It's the first thing she says, "What do you want?" And he says, "I want to shag you," is the first thing he says. Then she starts trying to scratch him, at which point he just, still in the headlock, punches her in the face 6, 7, 8 times and says, "If you scratch me, I'll kill you." And then he takes her off into the woodlands, into the area by the stream. Once he gets her off the footpath, there's a minor struggle here where he says, "I'm going to let you go. If you scream, I'll kill you." And he lets her go, and she makes a run for it. She doesn't really know where she is, and I think she tries to head that way. He grabs her straight away, punches her again, and then moves her further down alongside the stream.
Members of the jury, you will recall the punching stopped when she started to do what he wanted. She was stripped naked, her hands being bound behind her back with her brassiere. In the course of the attack, he tried to converse with her, asking her, for example, where she was from, and at other times was crude and threatening. He also commented on her appearance, saying, "You have a pretty body." He then raped her as she lay on the ground. As he did so, he urged her to talk to him, saying, "Tell me how much you like it. Tell me how big and strong I am."
It's a great contrast between the violence that he's exerting to her, the punches that he's raining into her face, and then he wants that sort of intimate sexual part of the offence as well. He wants the kissing. He wants her to tell him nice things about himself. It's a bizarre contrast, which makes me think that the violence wasn't something that he wanted to do. It was something that he was very capable of doing, something he felt he had to do to gain control and compliance of this victim.